student, today I am going to teach you about the hypertensive heart disease and congestive heart failure. So now come to the hypertensive heart disease. So before going to start hypertensive heart disease, so all of you know about the blood circulation in the heart. So the blood in the heart chambers moves in a carefully prescribed pathway. The venous blood from the systemic circulation goes to the right atrium, and from right atrium to the left right ventricle, and then goes to the pulmonary artery, and for the oxygenation of the blood goes to the lungs, and lungs then the purified blood goes to the pulmonary veins then goes to the left atrium to left ventricles, and finally aorta and systemic circulation of the body. So in the hypertensive heart disease, so there is a hypertrophy of the heart. So there is cardiac hypertrophy. So cardiac hypertrophy defined as an increase in size and weight of the myocardium or the myocyte of the heart. So this cardiac hypertrophy result from the increased mechanical work due to pressure overload, either the volume overload. This cardiac hypertrophy mediated through the activation of beta adrenergic receptor that are present on the cardiac myocytes. The cardiac myotrophy also dependent upon the increased protein synthesis, which enables the assembly of the additional sarcomeres. So here is the sarcomeres. So sarcomeres, what is sarcomeres? So sarcomeres, it is a structural unit of a myofibril in a striated muscles. So myofibril usually composed of a repeating section of the sarcomeres that under microscope appear as an alternating dark and light band. So under microscopic, the sarcomeres appear as alternating dark and light bands, and these sarcomeres composed of long fibrous protein as filaments that slide past each other when a muscle contract or relaxes. Now the hypertrophic myocytes. The hypertrophic myocytes contain increased number of mitochondria in large nuclei due to increase in DNA provide, which result from DNA replication in the absence of cell division. The pattern of hypertrophy reflects the nature of the stimulus. So the pattern of hypertrophy, one is the due to the pressure overload. So the pressure overload hypertrophy may lead to the concentric hypertrophy of the myocytes. Another is the volume overload hypertrophy that may lead to the eccentric hypertrophy of the heart. So in the volume overload, so there is a ventricular dilation. Now come to the pressure overload hypertrophy. So in the response to increased pressure load, usually due to the hypertension or aortic stenosis. So in the hypertensive heart disease, there is a pressure overload hypertrophy of the heart, and it causes a concentric increase in the wall thickness of the heart. New sarcomeres are predominantly assembled in parallel to the long axis of the cells and expanding the cross-sectional area of the myocytes. Now the volume overload hypertrophy. The volume overload hypertrophy, it is characterized by ventricular dilation, and it is a result from the increased volume load that may lead to the valvular incompetency. Here the new sarcomeres assembles are largely positions in series with the existing sarcomeres. The heart weight rather than wall thickness is the best measure of the hypertrophy. The wall thickness may be increased, normal, or the less than normal. Now the gross morphological picture. The thickness of the left ventricular wall, excluding the trabeculae, carneae and papillary muscles. The thickness of the left ventricular wall is about 15 millimeter in and is indicative of significant hypertrophy. In concentric hypertrophy, the lumen of the chamber is smaller than the usual, but in the eccentric hypertrophy, the lumen is dilated. So here we see the gross morphological picture of the hypertrophy, cardiac hypertrophy of the heart. So here you see here that this is the normal wall thickness of the heart. So thickness of the left ventricular wall above 15 millimeter is indicative of significant hypertrophy. So one is the concentric hypertrophy. In concentric hypertrophy, the lumen of the chamber is smaller than the usual, but in the eccentric hypertrophy, the lumen is dilated. So these are the microscopic picture of the normal myocardium, and other is the hypertrophied myocardium. So in the hypertrophied myocardium, there is increase in size of the individual muscles fibers. So what are the important changes at the tissue and cell level occur with cardiac hypertrophy? So to the cardiac hypertrophy, there is increase in myocyte size is not accompanied by a proportional increase in the capillary numbers. Supply of oxygen and nutrients to the hypertrophied heart is more tenacious than in the normal heart. Oxygen consumption by the hypertrophied heart is elevated due to the increased workload that drive the process. Hypertrophy is also often accompanied by the deposition of the fibrous tissue. The molecular changes include the expression of the immediate early genes like C4, C-MYC, C-JUNC and EGRN. So these are the different genes that involve in the hypertrophy of the heart. So the cardiac hypertrophy that may lead to the increase or elevated metabolic demand due to the increase in mass of the heart rate and contractility may lead to the increased cardiac oxygen consumption, and this may lead to the vulnerable to the ischemia related decompensation, and finally there is a cardiac failure and eventually death of the patient. The cardiac hypertrophy can be the substantial in clinical heart disease. So heart weight of the 2 to 3 times greater than the normal due to the systemic hypertension or the ischemic heart disease, aortic stenosis, mitral regurgitation, or the dilated cardiomyopathy. Heart weight of 3-fold to 4-fold greater than the normal due to the aortic regurgitation and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So now come to the congestive heart failure. So this is all about the hypertensive heart disease in which the concentric hypertrophy of the myocytes occur. So one is the pressure overload hypertrophy and second is the volume overload hypertrophy. So the cardiac hypertrophy in which there is a sustained increase in mechanical work due to the pressure or volume overload. So due to the systemic hypertension or the aortic stenosis, and sometimes there is a trophic signals like activation of the beta adrenergic receptor that may lead to the increase in myocytes and increase in size of the heart. So there is a hypertrophy and there is an increase in weight of the heart. So hypertrophy also required there is an increased protein synthesis that may enabling the assembling of the additional sarcomere. So this is all about the hypertensive heart disease or the cardiac hypertrophy. Now come to the congestive heart failure. So congestive heart failure So what is the heart failure? So heart failure is defined as the pathophysiological state in which impaired cardiac function is unable to maintain an adequate circulation for the metabolic needs of the tissue of the body. So this is the heart failure. So heart failure generally is referred to as congestive heart failure or CHF. It is common end point for the many form of the cardiac disease, and typically it is a progressive condition that carries an extremely poor prognosis. So CHF occurs when the heart is unable to provide adequate perfusion to meet the metabolic requirement of the peripheral tissue, or the inadequate cardiac output is usually accompanied by the increased congestion of the venous circulation. So the heart failure, it can be due to the systolic dysfunction or the diastolic dysfunction. So systolic dysfunction due to the inadequate myocardial contract function. So cardiac muscles contract weakly and the chambers cannot empty properly as a consequence of ischemic heart disease, pressure or volume load that may lead to the valvular disease, hypertension or the dilated cardiomyopathy. So these are all sequences that may occur due to the systolic dysfunction. Now, the diastolic dysfunction. In diastolic dysfunction, the heart is unable to adequately relax and feel. The muscles cannot relax sufficiently to permit ventricular filling, and that condition occur in the left ventricular hypertrophy, myocardial fibrosis, mammoid deposition, or due to the constructive pericarditis. Now the heart failure may be the acute or the chronic. So the chronic congestive heart failure. So chronic congestive heart failure, it is the end stage of many forms of the chronic heart disease, develops insidiously due to the cumulative effect of the chronic work overload, such as in the valve disease, hypertension, ischemic heart disease, following myocardial infarction with extensive heart damage. Now come to the acute heart failure. Acute heart failure develops rapidly or the suddenly occur in acute hemodynamic stresses like due to the fluid overload, acute valvular dysfunction, or due to a large myocardial infarction. Now the compensatory mechanism. So what are the different compensatory mechanism occur due to the congestive heart failure? When the cardiac function is impaired or the workload increases, several physiological mechanisms maintain arterial pressure and perfusion of the vital organs. So these compensatory mechanism that follow the Frank-Starling mechanism, and other the myocardial adaptation including hypertrophy with or without cardiac chamber dilation, activation of the neurohumoral system that may lead to the release of norepinephrine, activation of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone systems, and release of ANP, arterial natriuretic peptide. So these are the different mechanisms that may compensate or compensatory mechanism that may occur during the congestive heart failure. Now the causes of heart failure. The causes of heart failure are either the intrinsic pump failure, increased workload on the heart, or impaired filling of the cardiac chamber. Now come to the intrinsic pump failure. Intrinsic pump failure may be due to the ischemic heart disease, myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, metabolic disorders like beriberi, disorder of the rhythm, either the arterial fibrillation or the arterial flutters. Now the increased workload on the heart. So increased pressure load or the pressure overload that may occur in the systemic and pulmonary arterial hypertension, valvular disease like mitral stenosis, aortic stenosis, pulmonary stenosis or in the chronic lung diseases, and other is the due to the increased volume load. So due to the volume overload, the occur due to the valvular insufficiency, severe anemia, thyrotoxicosis, arteriovenous shunt development, and hypoxia due to the lung disease. So these are the different causes that may lead to the increased volume load and finally may lead to the heart failure. Now the impaired filling of the cardiac chamber. So impaired filling of the cardiac chamber, the cardiac failure may result from the extra cardiac causes or defect in the filling of the heart like cardiac tamponade, either the pericardium like deposition of the blood in the pericardial layer, or the hydropericardium, and other is the constructive pericarditis. Now the causes of the left-sided heart failure. So causes of left-sided heart failure are the ischemic heart disease, systemic hypertension, aortic and mitral valvular disease, myocardial disease, cardiomyopathy, and the myocarditis. Now the left-sided heart failure, the pathological changes and clinical effects result from the congestion of the pulmonary circulation, stasis of the blood in the left-sided chamber, hypotension of the tissue leading to the organ dysfunction. So the morphological changes due to the left-sided heart failure depend on the disease process. So gross structural abnormalities may occur, hypertrophy and dilation of the left ventricle. Microscopic changes are non-specific and consisting mainly of the myocyte hypertrophy and variable degree of the interstitial fibrosis. Now the left-sided heart failure, the main morphological changes occur that are the pulmonary congestion and edema, produce heavy and wet lungs, perivascular and interstitial edema, particularly in the interlobular septa, progressive edematous widening of the alveolar septa, accumulation of edema fluid in the alveolar space, extravasation of the red blood cells from the leaky capillaries into the alveolar space, that RBC are phagocytized by the macrophages, and subsequent breakdown of hemoglobin lead to the appearance of the hemosiderin-laden alveolar macrophages, that is called the heart failure cells, that reflect the previous episodes of the pulmonary edema. So here you see in the diagram, so these are the left-sided heart failure that may lead to the pulmonary edema, and there is a heart failure cells. So these are the hemosiderin-laden macrophages. So the clinical features of left-sided heart failures are cough, dyspnea with exertion, dyspnea at rest, orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, basal lung crackles, presence of third heart sound. So these features are usually occur due to the pulmonary congestion or the pulmonary edema. So that there is also salt and fluid retention due to the activation of the renin-angiotensin activating systems, impaired excretion of the nitrogenous product that may cause the azotemia. The other clinical feature due to the left-sided heart failure, there may lead to the cerebral hypoxia, can give rise to the hypoxic encephalopathy with irritability, loss of attention span, and restlessness. In a stage of CHF, this can even progress to the stupor and coma, and finally death of the patient. So now come to the right-sided heart failure. So right-sided heart failure as a consequence of left ventricular failure. So there is a cor pulmonary. So there is a abnormal enlargement of the heart. So the cor pulmonary is the abnormal enlargement of the right side of the heart. So cor pulmonary, in which the right heart failure occurs due to the intrinsic lung diseases, pulmonary and tricuspid valvular disease, pulmonary hypertension secondary to the pulmonary thromboembolism, myocardial disease affecting the right heart, and congenital heart disease with left to right shunt. So the pathological changes in the right-sided heart failure are under the systemic venous condition in different tissue and organs that may lead to the subcutaneous edema on the dependent parts of the body, passive congestion of the liver, spleen, and kidney, the development of ascites, hydrothorax or the pleural effusion, congestion of the leg veins and neck veins, and finally there is a reduced cardiac output resulting in circulatory stagnation, causing anoxia, cyanosis, and coldness of the extremities. Main important features of the right-sided heart failure are due to the congestion of the liver. So there is a congested hepatomegaly that may lead to appearance of the nutmeg liver, in which the red-brown centrilobular discoloration and pale peripheral regions of the liver. Cardiac sclerosis and cirrhosis. So due to this there is a centrilobular necrosis and fibrosis in the long-standing severe cases, congested splenomegaly. There is a GI congestion, subcutaneous edema, usually in the dependent portion of the body, especially the ankle or pedal edema. Tibial edema is the hallmark of the right-sided heart failure. In chronically bedridden patient, there is a presacral edema. So in the right-sided heart failure, there is a congestion of the kidney is the more marked with the right-sided than the left-sided heart failure, leading to the greater fluid retention and peripheral edema and more pronounced azotemia. Venous congestion and hypoxia of the central nervous system can produce deficit of the mental function, or there is a mental retardation. So the right-sided heart failure, so in the diagram you see there is a different types of the clinical features. So there is a development of fatigue, dependent edema, hepatomegaly, ascites, pleural effusion, cyanosis, and there is increased peripheral venous pressure and increased jugular venous pressure, JVP. See here you see in the diagram how to measure the jugular venous pressure. So there is an increase in jugular venous pressure in the right-sided heart failure. So here you see the how the differentiate between the right heart failure and left heart failure. So in the right heart failure, so there is a residual blood in the left ventricle that may lead to the increased left arterial pressure and volume, and finally there is a increased pressure in the pulmonary venous circulation, lead to the pulmonary arterial hypertension and increase right ventricular pressure, and finally that may lead to the systemic venous congestion and peripheral edema in the right-sided heart failure. In the left-sided heart failure, that may also provoke the development of the right heart failure. So in the left heart failure, there is a decrease in cardiac output, so that may lead to the tissue anoxia, decreased renal perfusion, and due to the decreased renal perfusion, there is activation of the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. So there is a sodium and water retention, and finally there is a pulmonary congestion and pulmonary edema. So these are the flow chart how the right-sided and left-sided heart failure lead to the different pathological changes. Now the what are the forward heart failure and the backward heart failure? So the congestive heart failure, it is characterized by the variable degree of the decreased cardiac output and tissue perfusion. So if there is a decreased cardiac output and tissue perfusion, usually is called the forward heart failure, and sometimes there is a pooling of the blood in the venous system, that is known as the backward failure, and later may cause the pulmonary edema and peripheral edema or the both. So in the backward heart failure, there is an increased congestion of the venous circulation, but in the forward heart failure, there is an inadequate cardiac output. Thank you. So this is all about the hypertensive heart disease, how the cardiac hypertrophy occurs, like concentric hypertrophy and the eccentric cardiac hypertrophy and congestive heart failure. Thank